My name is Jody Rock. I am a band member in Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, currently working as the health liaison. Part of the work that I do is to support health service providers in capacity building, and what that means is putting suggestions in for training of new staff, so onboarding, professional development of staff, with the end goal of having them better able to support Indigenous people as they engage with the healthcare system. Here we go again.
Yep.
Nice to chat with you, Ashton, as always. This conversation, we're going to be talking specifically about plant medicines. Mm-hmm. The narrative that we're countering is that plant medicine is primitive because it's not scientifically validated. Mm-hmm. So in the Western medicine model, it's all about studies and empirical knowledge and validating, medicines in that way. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be addressing and talking about. So can you remind us again the source of your learning and how you came to be doing this work?
Yeah, so for me, like I said, I've been doing this since I was about 7, 8 years old. I've been actually treating people, especially family members and family friends, since I was about 9, and that kind of just took off. And so for me, starting out learning, I started to seek out a lot of knowledgeable people, medicine people, people that are no longer with us anymore. And so some of my teachers were actually people that really understood well how to incorporate diet plans, how to incorporate, again, looking at the whole, right? Our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspect, right? And so I think for me, understanding and sitting with these older people and really listening to what they were telling me is that we have to start taking this knowledge back. This is something that is very important to us, and it's something that's going to, I think, lead the way when it comes to helping heal us from all these diseases and illnesses that we're seeing. Right?
Yeah. So you're learning. It's very different from 6 years or 8 years or whatever it might be of post-secondary. Yeah. It's almost sounding like being 7 or 8 years old, like I was very much all about playing. I had no idea about, what it is that I wanted to be or do when I grow up. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that in a lot of ways, this is almost like a lifelong journey or a commitment that you're making, and that you started in that childhood where you're saying, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to learn, I'm going to share knowledge, which is very different from somebody going to school and getting a piece of paper that says, okay, here you go, go out there and do that, because, they may start their schooling much later, not have any idea, may try different things. Yeah. So this really is, what I'm hearing from you, is a lifelong commitment and a journey, like a lifelong journey.
And I think that is for most people that work with medicine and understand medicine, because again, we're taught protocols that we have, right? So we have protocols that we have to ensure that when we're working with medicine that we're keeping a good mind, right? And again, it's about keeping your thoughts, it's about keeping your intentions true and pure. And the other thing I want to stress as well is that for traditional people that truly understand what it is to work with medicine and to help other people, is that, like myself, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do none of that, and that's part of that. That's part of our way of being, and again, honoring and respecting the medicines and the things that we do. Mm-hmm.
So you talked a little bit about preparation and preparing medicine, and what you need to do before sharing with others. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah. So again, I think even just before we go out, and some people do this, some people don't. But again, we have to really focus ourselves. So even before we go out and we harvest, it's you have to center yourself. You have to really focus on what you're doing. Now, some people tend to smudge. Some people will burn tobacco. And again, we're communicating with all of creation. So anytime we work with that tobacco, and that's one of our most sacred medicines, it's one of our first medicines. And that's our communication line with the Creator. And one of the things that we do is we talk to those plants, again, because the plants have a spirit, and we know that. all things in life have spirit, right? And so when we talk to the medicines, we're talking to spirit, we're talking to creation, and we're talking to the creator. So again, that's one of the things that we do before we go, and even before we can take something from the land, is we have to give an offering. And again, that's showing respect, that's showing that we appreciate the spirit of that medicine. Yeah.
So it's really about spirit to spirit communication, or honoring spirit, the life essence and the spirit and everything around us, rather than just recalling facts from a book or going to, book knowledge. So I think that, to me, that's more superior, is when you're actually communicating on that spirit to spirit level than just remembering things that you read in a book someplace. Right. So are you aware of any modern pharmaceuticals that are based on our wisdom, plant medicine wisdom?
I guess when we look at our medicines and ones that we had traditional knowledge on that are being used today, so one of my teachers, he talked about mayapple. I guess the Cherokee language, when they translate that, it talks about that plant wearing a straw hat, right? And if you look at mayapple, it looks like it's got a big straw hat on it, right? But what they used to use that for in their gardens, in taking care of the weeds, I guess like a pesticide, was the mayapple, and they would use the roots. Today, if we look at Western medicine and what they do, so there's a plant compound, a natural plant compound called podophyllitoxin, and that's what's naturally in mayapple roots. They take that now and they use that as a precursor to making different kinds of chemotherapy drugs. So I think it's called etoposide is one of them. So that's for treating lymphoma, treating testicular cancer, lung cancer, right? And that's so harsh if we think about what that does on the body, right? And so that's just one of them that was used. And again, our people ate those apples only when they were ripe, because we understood that plant is so toxic to the body that there's only certain types of time of the year that we harvest that plant. And so again, when I would talk to him about cancer and how do we treat cancer using our medicines, and he just thought there was such a disconnection between the land and between ourselves and our place in creation. Because again, if we're using a plant as a medicine for killing weeds and bugs and that sort of thing, why are we putting that in our bodies, right? And so again, that's just one of the things that we have to be very cautious of.
Yeah, I'm curious, because I know people that have gone through cancer, they've got really horrific side effects. So if you were using like mayapple, what would those side effects be, if any?
Well, again, it would be nausea, right? Really a harsh thing, because again, if you eat that when it's not ripe, you're going to throw up, you're going to have diarrhea. And again, you're going to have all these terrible issues going on and effects. So
you had a key point in there, when they're not ripe, and that just speaks to the level of knowledge that you need to have. And you talked earlier about the relationship that you have with the plants when you're learning. So you learn about them, you observe them in all different stages. Right. So when they're dormant, when they're budding, when they're flowering, and it just speaks to the high level of knowledge that you need to have to use these things safely.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the thing, right? When we talk about our traditional medicines, is that there are specific times of years when we harvest. We have to be very cautious sometimes in certain plants, how we harvest them, whether we have to wear gloves, whether we have to not even touch your face when you work with certain medicines, because again, some of them are so strong. And again, it's about safety. So it's not just something that your average person can go out and do sometimes, because again, some of our medicines require specific conditions and certain ways of harvesting.
So these ideas that you're just going in your backyard and picking some weeds and then giving them to this person is totally
not true at all. I guess a very an easy one or a simple one is if we look at aspirin, right? So aspirin itself was originally derived from willow. So willow bark and the willow tree being such an amazing medicine for inflammation, right? Using it to help treat pain, headaches and migraines, that sort of stuff, tooth issues, right? Tooth infections. So that was one that was originally derived naturally from salicylic acid, right? There's salicylic acid in willow, and now it's synthesized. So again, that's just one that was originally used for that purpose, right? And again, I think if we look at medicine and where we should be going back to is returning to the land, actually using these plant medicines as opposed to something that's been synthesized, because again, there's a disconnection between spirit, right? So again, we're not honoring that plant anymore, right? We're taking compounds from something and synthesizing them. And I think that's where we kind of got into a lot of trouble.
Right, right, because that reciprocal nature isn't there, right? So those, the from my understanding is the plants offer themselves. And maybe you experience that when you're going out and picking, because I've heard some people say, oh, it's not visible to me today. Different things. So the plants do offer themselves, and we honor that reciprocal relationship. It's a give and take relationship,
it is,
right?
Well, that's the thing, right? So again, in our teachings, we're taught that the medicine plants, they all have names, right? And again, they all have a reason why they're here on this earth, as do we, right? So we all have things to offer, right? And now, so if we look at our at our medicines and what they do, so when we need help or when we're sick, those medicines will come to us, and that's what we're taught, is to be very focused and watch. And so when you're dealing with something, like a good example was so me as being somebody that really understands a lot of the plants that grow around my home or where I live. One of the plants that started to show up at my house was motherwort. So my father, he started to have really bad sciatica. Couldn't move. He was in a lot of excruciating pain. But a couple days before that, I started to see motherwort growing, and it's never grew there before. And at that point in time, they were already fully flowered. And that's the perfect time when we're supposed to harvest those medicines to use for those kinds of issues. And that's what I did. I offered my tobacco, I give thanks. And sure enough, he was better walking around within a day and a half. So again, our medicines come to us, and when we need them, they'll help us. That's their duty or responsibility.
Their duty and responsibility, I like that. And it kind of leads into the next question. One of the things I've heard criticisms of our medicine and our ways of healing, Indigenous medicine or practices, is just spiritual or ceremonial belief. So it's just this little ceremony that they do or belief that they have, and it doesn't really have anything behind it. It's not real medicine. What would you say to somebody that was saying that?
Well, again, I think that's completely false, because in a lot of ways, sure, there's so much spirituality involved in what we do, because us as a people, especially Anishinaabe people, is that we understand our connection to the land. We understand our connection in all of life. And again, it's not just, we can't take one thing from the other, right? So we have to give thanks to the medicines and what they do. That's our spiritual side of things. Now, the physical aspect of that is for somebody like myself to take those medicines, to take those plants, to work with them. And there's a lot of things involved in that, right? It's not just we go pick things and we throw it in a pot and we drink it. It doesn't work like that. So there's a lot of things we have to do in understanding how to treat the body, how to treat things at the source, right? So there's a lot more to it than just the spiritual aspect. But again, that is a big part of what we do and why we do things, right? Yeah.
Well, you touched on this a little bit about why this might not be true. Another thing that I've heard is that that way of doing things is outdated. It's primitive. We have better ways. Nowadays, better solutions. Maybe they're faster acting. What would you say to someone that's saying, well, that's the old way of doing things. We don't need to do that anymore. We've come into the modern age.
Well, I'll say this, especially with our medicines, is that what's becoming such a huge issue right now is the reliance on antibiotics, right? So we look at antibiotics and especially resistance to antibiotics, and what a huge issue and a crisis that's going to become. Again, if our bodies can no longer fight these things because, again, overuse of antibiotics, right? So we have natural medicines, we have medicines that will treat these kinds of things, these viral infections, these things, because again, a lot of people, they'll tend to go run to the doctor when, for antibiotics. And again, we have medicines that will treat those things. We have medicines that will really improve your condition. And again, it's not something that's outdated or something that, again, I think especially going forward, our medicines are what is going to lead the way in helping these crises and helping these things, eh? Reliance on pills and especially with kidney disease and liver disease, right? So, yeah.
So how would you know that a medicine that you prescribe is having the desired impact?
Well, I guess it depends on the individual, but more often than not, we'll know because the symptoms that are coming up will improve within a couple hours, right? So a lot of times our medicines, some like we talked about, they'll be a little bit slower acting, right? But more times than anything, they will improve a situation like that rather quickly. Okay?
Do you think it could be placebo effect?
Placebo, well, there's always that thing, right? When we talk about placebo, there's always a chance that it could be something like that.
With Western medicine too, though, right?
With Western medicine too. And so what I would say is that, again, when we look at the individual, is that we have to really, and what I like to do is I like to have them update me on how they're doing. And again, they'll see a lot more desired results rather quickly than they would if they were taking something else, right? And again, that's helping with a lot more other things. So when somebody comes and says, hey, I've got an issue with my liver, I need some help detoxing my liver, okay, I'm having skin issues, right? What happens is when I hear them talk is that because of being around in doing this work for such a long time, is I can sometimes see when somebody's having a mental, emotional issues, right? Or I can feel that. And so what I tend to do is those medicines, they'll tell you what they need. Eh? And so I'll include different things for them to kind of help with those things. Now, again, now they feel amazing. After just a couple hours of taking our traditional medicines, they'll start to feel better. They can do more, right? And they don't feel so lethargic either, right? Yeah.
So one of the things with pharmaceuticals is that once, say for example, sleep meds, so once you start taking, you're dependent on it long term.
Yeah.
Is that the same for plant medicine?
No. So with plant medicine, you can come off it at any time. Our medicines aren't addictive. Our medicines don't cause a reliance because again, we're not fighting the body. So we're giving the body everything it needs to fully combat and deal with the issues that are coming up. And one thing, especially with our medicines that are good for sleep, good for insomnia, what they often tend to do is not to knock you out. They don't put you to sleep right away. But what they do is they actually help your body to relax. They help your body to get to a place where you can fully relax and kind of turn your mind off. And so what happens is they tend to often say that they get longer sleep. They start to feel a lot more calm. They start to feel well rested. So as opposed to taking something that'll just totally knock them out, it's giving your body that way to kind of relax, to release those things, so you can sleep.
Yeah, and then there's that kind of like hangover effect the next day where you might be groggy or something.
And
right?
Exactly, that's not something that happens when we take traditional medicines for sleep and things like that. Yeah. So
the whole idea of our talk today is to look at why plant medicine is not primitive, and kind of debunk the idea that Western medicine is superior because it's validated empirically. So one of the things that I've heard you say is about how medicine will grow around you when you need it, and that there I think is far superior to anything that Western medicine has been able to do. Today, like you can't look around and see prescriptions popping up around you, right? So I think that relationship with creation and honoring our place in that relationship is really part of that magic that makes our medicines and our ways of taking care of ourselves so beautiful, because it's a reciprocal relationship.
It is,
Just like you mentioned, that plant is saying, hey, you're going to need me, right? Before you even knew it. So thank you. Thank you again for the conversation. Always good to sit down and chat.
Miigwech.